There are discrete connections or distinctive behavioral factors between two or more previously unrelated cases by means of crime scene analysis, including examination of offender and modus operandi and signature. Interrupted bar incomplete offense, one that does not contain enough MO behavior to complete the offense. MO or modus operandi, a Latin term that means method of operating. It refers to the manner in which a crime has been committed. Motive, the emotional, psychological, and material needs that impel and are satisfied by behavior. Offense gone wrong, one that contains unintentional, unplanned MO behaviors that increase the offender's risk or criminal status. X factor, any unknown or unplanned influence that can affect crime scene behavior during an offense. MO or modus operandi is a Latin term that means method of operating. It refers to the manner in which a crime has been committed. It is comprised of acts that are necessary to commit a crime and any related choices made by an offender. A short history. Heading. Law enforcement has long held to the belief that understanding the methods and techniques criminals use to commit crime is the best way to investigate, identify, and ultimately apprehend them. This has traditionally required that the best detectives become living encyclopedias of criminal cases and behaviors. It has also demanded that they learn to utilize the knowledge and experience of known criminals to inform their investigative strategy. Knowledge of criminal methods. Heading. In 1809, the French demonstrated a strong belief in this approach to criminal investigation through their faith in a former convict named Eugene Vidocq. He had been working as a police spy and was assigned to the government to form a brigade de sûreté. He organized and led this group of detectives, mostly former criminals themselves. Within their first year, Vidocq and his men had made more than 750 arrests. However, they were paid based on the number of criminals that they apprehended, a common practice at the time. This led some to believe this approach was the perfect solution to the local criminal problem. Vidocq and his detectives understood how criminals operated, had insight into their habits and methods of operation, and were putting that knowledge to work for the good of the state. However, this led others to suspect that they committed many of the crimes themselves, and then framed known criminals or detractors in order to close out the cases. In 1832, Vidocq was removed from office on the charge of instigating a crime for the purpose of uncovering it. Despite this, Vidocq appears to enjoy a favorable historical place as the first and very successful chief of French Sûreté Nationale. Whether Vidocq was a master detective or merely continued his criminal career through the Sûreté, a philosophy of criminal investigation emerged. To understand criminals, to develop competent investigative strategies, to link their crimes and to successfully apprehend them, detectives need to understand very intimately the particular methods criminals use to commit their crimes. This investigative philosophy survives on an international level in one form or another to the present day. For example, when the United States Secret Service began in 1865 to suppress counterfeit currency, its staff consisted partly of former counterfeiters. Over the years, they have continued to employ the services of ex-criminal consultants. They are not unique. Law enforcement agencies around the world still use criminal informants, paid and otherwise, as a necessary means to gain access to and the knowledge of ongoing criminal activity, the methods of particular criminals and criminal networks, and information on the street. Next heading, the Achterley modus operandi system. By the late 1900s, major police departments developed and maintained a MO file on many suspects and criminals. These were essentially file cards or booking sheets that contained basic identifying information like the name, date of birth, description, physical characteristics, information about any scars or tattoos. In some cases, photographs might also have been attached. This file soon grew to contain information regarding criminal aliases, criminal history, and criminal affiliations. Example, gangs, organizations, and known criminal associates. However, there was no formal orderly system of offender MO classification, just information on a card that detectives might or might not bother to read. 1913, Major Llewellyn W. Achterley, one of the West Riding Yorkshire Constabulary in England, published a 10-part system of declassifying offender MO behavior that he had developed and refined over the decades. His groundbreaking handbook was titled Modus Operandi, Criminal Investigation and Detection, and it recommended scrupulous documentation and examination of the following features in every case. 1. Class word, the nearest possible description of the victim personal property attacked. If a person, what occupation? If premises, what specific kind? Entry. The actual point of entry to the property where the crime occurred. 3. Means. The actual method of entry. How did they get to the point of entry? And what tools did they use? Like ladders, adjacent properties, ropes, keys and crowbars. Object. The motive and intent of the crime and intended target, that is person or property. Time. The actual time of the offence, not just the hours it occurred, but during which period of time, that is weekend, during church hours, while occupants of a dwelling were home or away. Style. The actual or pretend occupation of the offender during the offence, not to be confused with the offender's non-criminal trade. However, style and trade may be the same for opportunistic offenders. Sometimes the style is a presumed identity or an occupation. Sometimes it is the offender's actual identity or occupation. Sometimes it is entirely fabricated. Tale. The statement made by the offender to cover their tracks, their alibis, etc. Pal. The nature and role of accomplices, if any. Transport. Means with which the offender arrived at and departed from the scene of crime. Example, by foot, by vehicle or public transportation. Trademark. Extraordinary acts not associated with the object of the crime, that is sleeping in a bed, eating food, destroying clothing, furniture or shaving. Achille believed that the individual professional criminal MO would often be found to have a distinctive trademark. Here he was referring to what would ultimately come to be known as the signature behavior. Acts committed by an offender that are not necessary to commit the crime, but that suggest the psychological and emotional needs of that offender. The Achille system was widely adopted by the law enforcement agency in England, came to US by way of August Vollmer, the first chief of police in Berkeley, California, and the leading figure behind early efforts to professionalize and modernize law enforcement training and criminal justice education in the US. Vollmer argued that no professional police department would be without an organized system of documenting and classifying criminal MO. He explained that professional criminals were migratory, therefore a need existed to systematically classify and organize their methods of operation, use this system for identification purpose when the offender was unknown, and communicate this information to other agencies effectively. He subsequently revised the Achurson MO system and published it for public use in 1920. Owing to the efforts of Vollmer, who was also inspired by a publication of the Austrian jurist Dr. Hans Gross on the subject of criminal investigation, forensic science and MO. MO analysis. The concept of MO classification analysis soon became foundational to forensic and investigative literature. Though advances have not been made in technology, any modern development and utility of MO as an investigative concept is based largely in the classification system that were originally set forth in Achille in 1913 handbook. It remains a valuable touchstone to this day. The utility of MO analysis. A criminal's MO is made up of choices and behavior that are intended to assist in their completion of the crime. It is, however, separate from the concept of motive, the emotional, psychological, and material needs that impel or satisfied by behavior of crime. The collection, storage, and examination of MO information, whether arrest cards or in computer databases, has traditionally been investigatively relevant for the following reasons. 1. Investigative linkage of unsolved cases by MO. Suspect identification by comparing known criminal MO with the MO evidence in unsolved cases. Routine comparison of arrested MO with the MO evidence in unsolved cases. Development of investigative leads or suspect identity in unsolved cases by virtue of accumulating MO information. Suspect prioritization or elimination and clearance of the unsolved cases. MO analysis is also an important aspect of criminal profiling. Using profiling techniques, it helps to provide an array of information about the offender. This includes the involvement of criminal choices, procedures, and techniques that can be characteristic or reflective of the following: a particular discipline, trade or skill, profession or area of knowledge, criminal or non-criminal, knowledge particular to the victim, that is suggesting surveillance, contact, a prior relationship, and dash, knowledge particularly to a crime scene, suggesting surveillance, contact, or intimate familiarity or the absence of these. Elements of MO. As already established, offenders' MO behavior is a functional in nature. It is comprised of learned behaviors that can evolve and develop over time. It can be defined as an offender becomes more experienced and sophisticated and confident. It can also become less competent and skilled over time, decompensating by virtue of a deteriorating mental state or increase the use of controlled substances. MO behaviors most often serve or fail to serve one or more of the three general purposes. 1. Protection of the offender identity. For example, wearing a mask during a daytime bank robbery, covering a victim's eyes during a rape, wearing gloves during a burglary, killing a witness to any of these above, and staging the crime scene. That is protection of offender identity. Next, successful completion of the crime. For example, targeting and acquitting the victim, using a gag to silence the victim, causing a weapon to commit a crime, and making a lot of potential victims with pertinent information, and using a gun to kill the victim. Facilitation of offender escape. For example, use of a stolen vehicle during the commission of a crime, disposal of a vehicle after the commission of a crime, and tying up or knocking out victims to prevent their escape and hamper their attempt to get help. General elements of MO can include crime scene characteristics such as but not limited to the following. 1. Number of offenders. 2. Amount of planning before a crime. 3. Offense location selected. 4. Route taken to offense location. 5. Victim selection when functional and not fantasy. 6. Pre-offense surveillance of the crime scene or victim. 7. Involvement of a victim during a crime, non-fantasy period. 8. Use of weapon during a crime. 9. Use of restraints to counter the victim during a crime. 10. Nature and extent of injuries to the victim. 11. Method of killing the victim. 12. The nature and extent of precautionary acts. 13. Location and position of the victim's clothing. 14. Location and position of the victim's body. 15. Item taken from the victim on crime scene for profit or to prevent identification. 16. Method of transportation to and from the crime scene. 16. Direction of the escape route taken from offense location. It is important to note that an offender's MO can be an act or a failure to act. Common examples of failure to act include not using a condom during sexual assault, not using a firearm during the commission of robbery, not killing witnesses during the commission of a home invasion burglary. These are all choices that an offender makes, whether by action or omission. Influences on MO. An offender's MO behaviors are learned and by extension they are dynamic and malleable. This is because MO is affected by time and can change as the offender learns or deteriorates. An offender's MO is therefore a function of both fortifying and destabilizing factors. Fortifying factors. Offenders may realize that the sum of the choices they make during a crime are more proficient and effective than others. They may subsequently repeat them in future offences, becoming more skillful as well as strengthening or fortifying their MO. Over the course of criminal career, offenders may also incorporate choices that unintentionally reveal something about their identity, character or experience. Common ways that offenders may learn how to commit crimes more skillfully, evade capture and conceal their identity, that is fortifying factors, include but are certainly not limited to these listed above. Educational and technical material. Until they are captured, convicted, criminals have equal access to same learning opportunities as any other children. Professional journals, college courses, textbooks and other educationally oriented material available at a bookstore, public library or via the internet can provide active offenders with knowledge that is useful in refining their particular MO. Trade or professional experience. Offenders may have been or may currently be employed in trades and professions that utilize special knowledge or that require proficiency with specialized techniques, that is, electrician, plumber, telephone company, software design, military, law enforcement and pilot. Such specified knowledge may find its way into an offender's MO and be reflected in the offence. The offence may also reflect an opportunity created by the offender's profession by virtue of time, place and victim availability. Criminal experiences and confidence. An offender commits more of the same type of crime. They can become more proficient in it. They may act more confidently and be able to handle the unexpected more smoothly, or even be prepared for it, or they may have tailored their precautionary acts to type of criminal activities they expect to engage in. Next heading. Contact with the criminal justice system. Being arrested just once may teach an offender an invaluable lesson about how to avoid detection by law enforcement in the future. Furthermore, and ironically more, a present term in the US is referred to by some in both law and the criminal population as going to college. This is because in prison, younger and less experienced offenders have the opportunity to network and with the older and more experienced offenders who have already accumulated a great deal of criminal knowledge. Consequently, a prison term of only a few years has the potential to advance an offender's knowledge and skill level far beyond their original MO. Once released, they may take this education and embark on a criminal enterprise that previously would have been beyond his or her ability. The media. Some offenders monitor investigation into crimes by paying close attention to media accounts in the newspaper and television. Not only may information relating to case provide an offender with insights into the need for future precautionary act, but it may also provide unrelated offenders with adequate information to copycat a particular series or deflect investigative attention. Next heading, destabilizing factors. MO can also deteriorate over time and become less skillful, less competent, more careless and more irrational. Common mechanisms that occur, cause or contribute to MO destabilization over time includes but are certainly not limited to 1. Deteriorating mental state, use of controlled substances. 3. Overconfidence which can lead to carelessness. 4. Offender mood that is agitated, excited, otherwise. 5. Involvement of unskilled or destabilized accomplices. X factors. An X factor is any unknown, unplanned influence that can affect crime scene behavior during an offense. The successful completion of a crime from an offender's perspective depends on events conforming to expectations. Under real life conditions, crime scene victims and other extrinsic influences do not always conform to the offender's plea. This includes among many possibilities: 1. Weapon malfunction. 2. Unexpected witness. 3. Victim preparedness or response. Ineffective method of killing or control resulting in unplanned victim survival or death. Next, vehicle malfunction, faulty engine, out of gas, flat tire, or increased security measures at the pre-selected scene, and unreliable accomplices. The presence of any number of X factors may force the offender to improvise or to take a hasty retreat, resulting in uninterrupted, incomplete offense or even an offense gone wrong. An interrupted, incomplete offense is one that does not contain enough MO behavior to complete the offense. The incomplete crime might include the following: a victim, instead of being easy prey, turns around and kicks the offender in the groin. The offender may be stunned and limp away, or the victim may create an opportunity to flee the scene. Or during the attack, the passerby might unwittingly witness the offender, who may then flee the scene. Offender may also choose to walk away from the offense for any reason. Either way, the event would not have included the full potential range of offender MO behaviors and would therefore be incomplete. An offense gone wrong is one that contains unintentional, unplanned MO behavior which increases the offender's risk and criminal status. An event gone wrong might include the following: the offender might be actually or accidentally used too much force, or the victim's response might be too violent for the offender and the offender's control-oriented choking could result in victim's death. This turn of events can transform a serial rape investigation into a homicide investigation, increasing the offender's criminal status. Next heading, uniqueness and reliability. MO is often used as a tool in the investigative task of case linkage, which is the process of determining whether there are discrete connections or distinctive behavioral factors between two or more previously unrelated cases by means of a crime scene analysis, including the examination of offender MO and signature. However, it is often unsuited for the forensic courtroom purpose. MO is a dynamic and malleable, suffering from all manner of influences over time and circumstance. First, as explained in Weston and Wills, 1974, not all criminals have a particular MO, but some of them have distinctive enough methods to justify making investigative note of it. Second, within a given series of relevant related crimes, each crime scene is different. Each victim responds differently from others. Each individual offenders are often in a different mood or frame of mind each time they commit a crime. MO is not consistently comprised of behaviors that are necessarily distinctive or even unique to a particular offender. Their crimes will often unfold differently each time, even when committed with the same motive, intent, and methods. Given these realities, while helpful in the investigative task of case linkage, MO is often insufficiently reliable to address the issue of criminal identity in the courtroom. That is to say, MO is best used to help guide investigators to more certain evidence and keep their efforts on the course. They are in course. It should not generally be confused as conclusive evidence suggestive of offender identity when two or more cases are being compared, and certainly not in a legal context. There have been some attempts to database criminal MO behavior with the computer software such as FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program (VCAP) and a similar Canadian effort RCMP, Violent Crime Linkage Analysis System. However, both systems are only reliable as the case data that is entered into them by police investigators and later viability of the searches performed by law enforcement analysts. Problems have been identified in both cases. Additionally, many law enforcement investigations find the process of submitting a case to either system time consuming or often complain about a lack of results, to the point that V-class has been all but discontinued in Australia. Until such time as these databases are shown to be demonstrating reliable and representative by research efforts from independent examiners, the result of any searches remain investigatively relevant but generally inadmissible as evidence of offender identity in court. Chapter of Modus Operandi over.